At the beginning of this story, the Empire of Arcadia appears as a kingdom known for notoriously dishonest rulers and rigid lines of defense, erected with the promise of keeping the city at peace against anyone who tried to disrupt the rule of those in power there. It all began 5 years before the main events, when the humans living in the country created heavy combat suits, equipped with various weapons, prepared to face any armies or organizations that dared to challenge them and take the city. No one seemed capable of stopping them until, on a night of the full moon, a dark drag raid knight appeared wearing black armor, who put an end to the tyranny at once and became known as the Black Hero. This fighter had impressive power and single-handedly defeated and took control of the battlefield, pressing other mechas against the walls of the Empire and reducing buildings to ashes. From the top of a tower, a girl watched the fight, and when the confrontation ended, she heard footsteps behind her. The sound came from a silver-haired boy named Lux, who was the prince of the Empire, walking slowly toward the girl, enveloped in a dark aura while displaying an unsettling smile. The girl was frightened and tried to stand her ground, but fear overwhelmed her movements. Lux indicated that she should raise his sword without delay, and the girl obeyed instantly, seized by the urgency of the situation. To this day, the identity of this powerful dark drag raid knight remains a mystery to the rest of the world. Even so, everyone who lived in the Arcadia Empire and witnessed those events continues to tell the story of that night, as a sign of respect for the Black Hero who saved the country from a tyranny that seemed to have no end. No one, however, knows what happened after the fall of the city, because the Black Hero disappeared, and the Empire was taken over again by other leaders without any sign of him. The narrative then advances 5 years. The new rulers rename the Empire and start calling it the Kingdom of Atismata. In this scenario, a boy runs across the rooftops and in the midst of his escape, falls into the girls' dormitory, landing inside one of the rooms, among the surprised students. The boy, not knowing how to react, tries to minimize the impact of the situation and exaggerates his apologies, because he wants to avoid any provocation and does not want to upset anyone. The attempt fails immediately because one of the students screams loudly, calls Lux useless, and demands that he leave immediately, in addition to ordering the guards to arrest him. Later, Lux appears chained in a cell in the dungeons beneath the fortress of the new regime, kept there for the entire day. He looks weak and exhausted and tries to call out to someone in the fortress because thirst is tormenting him. At that moment, Crucifero appears, a beautiful young woman with blue hair. Lux explains that it was all a huge misunderstanding and claims that he was just chasing a cat that had stolen a woman's purse. He says that the chase led the animal to cross the dormitory rooftops, and that he ended up falling and landing in the middle of the girls. Crucifero shows no patience for what she calls flimsy excuses, and doesn't believe a word he says. Crucifero declares that he looked like a voyeur following the students, and belittles Lux as if he were a commoner who took her for naive. Crucifero then asks why he was carrying 2 sword-shaped devices, because it was very unusual for someone to use 2 weapons of this type at the same time, and notes that the black sword was unlike anything she had ever seen, because it was not forged in the current kingdom and seemed to be made of a rare black steel with engravings of stones and diamonds. At that moment, Lux states that Crucifero should not touch that sword. Soon after, another girl appears and intervenes. It is Charas, who warns Crucifero that it would not be appropriate to remain there talking to the prisoner. Charas also informs Lux that the principal wishes to speak with him at that moment. The group then leaves for the principal's office, taking Lux under guard. When they arrive at the principal's office, Lux is greeted by her and realizes that the former empire has been transformed into a kind of academy. The principal shows that she knows exactly who he is. In front of the other students, the principal explains that his name is Lux, and that he was the prince of the extinct empire of Arcadia, overthrown by a coup that led to the ruin of the old regime. She comments that his past weighs heavily as a failure in the eyes of the new power. Some students claim to have seen Lux watching the students, but the principal counters by saying that she knows his temperament and that he would not have the courage to spy on girls, even if some of them asked him to. The principal then asks if Lux understands what this place has become. After thinking it over, Lux realizes that he is in an all-girls academy run by the new kingdom of Atismata. The headmistress explains that because of the war 5 years ago, the best male knights of Dragre were lost. This was because Lux defeated almost all of them during the fall of the empire, leaving only Lux and a few survivors. The headmistress implies that she knows Lux was the Dark Knight known as the Black Hero, but keeps this information a secret from the others. The director then states that despite the loss of the best male knights, the girls show a natural aptitude for piloting the mechanized drag raids and that the institution's goal is to train them, which is why she wants Lux to work there as an instructor. Lux is surprised because he realizes that he is the only boy in the entire academy. The conversation is overheard by several students. Among them is Lisha Atismata, the princess of the current kingdom, who disapproves of his presence as an employee, not least because she was the student he fell on when he broke into the dormitory. Lisha is filled with indignation and challenges Lux to a one-on-one duel. The princess announces a simple condition. If Lux wins, he can work at the school. If he loses, he must lay down his arms, apologize, accept defeat, and remain a prisoner forever. The principal declares that she will not interfere in this matter, and that the decision is in the princess's hands, so Lux must accept the duel. The other students are excited because Lisha Atismata is known as the strongest student, and many want to see a boy defeated and humiliated on the battlefield. The principal, however, reminds them that such euphoria is not appropriate, because Lux became famous for winning the Imperial Tournament of the Old Empire, and was nicknamed the weakest among the undefeated champions. A nickname that Lux finds amusing, since he knows his own history and knows what he is capable of as a dark dragon ride knight, something that almost no one there understands. After that, Princess Lisha orders everyone to announce to the kingdom that the Princess of Atismata will duel with Lux, the former Prince of Arcadia. Lux is deeply surprised when he realizes that she is the princess of the new empire that overthrew him. At the end of the day, Lux meets with his sister Eri, who expresses frustration with the careless way he got himself into trouble and the number of accusations of inappropriate behavior that almost fell on him. Eri's friend Knocked Leaflet remains cautious and avoids relaxing around Lux because she wants to increase the tension until the situation is resolved. Eri fears that Lux will be arrested for acting inappropriately and also fears having to take on the family's debts. The former royal family is treated as criminals and therefore must pay fines to regain privileges equivalent to those of an ordinary citizen of the Kingdom of Atismata. Given this situation, Eri wants Lux to win the duel against Lisha, who also has a history of invincibility. Lux, known for carrying the label of weakest among the undefeated, agrees to his sister's request. The next day, Lux enters the arena to face Lisha. A stadium packed with female students vibrates with the confrontation between a figure of royalty from the past and the princess of the present. Lisha asks if Lux understands the reason for the duel she proposed. When she realizes that he does not know, Lisha promises to reveal the reason if he wins the fight. Lux unsheathes his sword and equips a wyvern while Lisha synchronizes her armor with a much more powerful divine drag ride called Tiamat. Compared to the wyvern used by Lux, the Tiamat has a much more advanced set of controls. Realizing his disadvantage, Lux bets on dodging from the first moves and focuses his entire strategy on defense. Lisha quickly realizes that he is trying to force a draw by running out the clock, so she launches drones and then fires a concentrated beam. The blade attached to the wyvern breaks when Lux tries to block Lisha's attack. The princess then summons a barrage of weapons and, without hiding her impatience, demands that Lux activate the other black sword, which appears to be much stronger. For reasons he keeps to himself, Lux avoids bringing the weapon into battle, which angers Lisha because she refuses to be underestimated. Even in the face of risk, Eri remains convinced that her brother becomes stubborn when he sets a goal and does not give in easily. Eri concludes that determination can sustain victory. As Eri had predicted, Lux begins to dodge each shot with increasing precision, which upsets Lisha and pushes her to resort to a special ability available only to divine Dragoridas, while the audience holds its breath and watches the exchange of blows that will decide the future of the only boy in that academy. The ability pulls Lux to the ground, and he realizes that Tiamat's special power is gravity control. Shortly after the attack, Lisha becomes visibly tired and loses control of her armor. Elsewhere in the city, a suspicious person blows a horn and breaks the barriers around the duel field, while summoning a creature called Abyss. With the arrival of the Abyss, people are evacuated to a safe place while Lux decides to advance and face the monster. With Lisha's help, Lux devises a plan in which he would serve as bait, and Lisha would use the cannon to defeat the creature with a single shot at the agreed-upon signal. Lux takes risks to position the Abyss at the exact point of the concentrated shot. Lisha fires at the right time, and the shot hits its mark. When the monster falls, Lux faints inside the wyvern, plummets from the sky, and is rushed to a support room inside the academy. The next day, Lux dreams of the past and remembers his half-brother running away, asking if Lux with the wyvern would cooperate with him and Bahamut. Lux awakens from his faint and finds himself lying in a bed. As a way of thanking him for protecting her, Leisha decides to help Lux and spends the day checking on his condition. Leisha considers Lux to be more humble than the former members of the Arcadia royal family, and Lux explains that he was removed from the imperial court, so he does not act like the former rigid leaders of Arcadia. Leisha keeps her promise and explains the reason for the duel she had proposed. Leisha shows the crest near her lower abdomen and explains that she wanted to fight because Lux accidentally saw her in the bath, and she needed to confirm that he would keep it a secret. The crest belongs to the ancient empire of Arcadia, and Leisha prefers not to go into further detail. When Leisha asks about the black sword-shaped device, Lux also avoids explanations because he wants to keep it a secret. As the two begin to understand each other better, Leisha allows Lux to remain a cadet instead of an academy employee, which leaves Lux surprised and grateful. The next day, Lux enrolls as a cadet and joins a training class. After introducing himself to the teacher and his classmates, Lux sits next to his childhood friend Filufi, whom he hasn't seen in 7 years, and who now exudes a more confident presence. Sitting nearby, Leisha is upset because she would like to monopolize Lux's attention, but the dynamics of the room change, and other people also approach him. At the end of the class, several students learn that Lux accepts small maintenance jobs. Many ask Lux to put his skills to use, and the classmate responsible for organizing the requests distributes forms to anyone who wants to request a job. Leisha asks Lux if she could accompany him as a private escort. Faced with the crowd, Filufi tries to intervene to help him, but Leisha distracts her with candy. Crucifer arrives and reminds Lux of the job offer previously made by the principal. After leading Lux to a quiet place, Crucifer says she has found a reason for him to get away from the commotion for a while. In return, she asks Lux to keep an eye on the Black Drag Ride Knight, known as the Black Hero, because she has business to attend to with that person. Later, while sleeping, Lux dreams again about the past, and sees Fugui say that Filufi would soon be used in a human experiment by the Arcadia Empire. Lux wakes up and realizes that he is close to Filufi in an awkward situation, which leads to misunderstandings when a classmate passes by in the hallway and spreads rumors around the school. During break time, Eri calls Lux's attention for his careless behavior and decides to distance herself to avoid trouble. At the end of the day, Lux goes to Leisha's workshop to fulfill a service request. Leisha shows him his wyvern, which she has completely repaired, because she considers it important to support him as a member of the school's Knight Order. The Knight Order is a special unit formed by cadets, whose abilities are recognized. Lux promises to help Leisha build a more just kingdom of Adidlisama from the ruins of the former Arcadia Empire. As the formal ceremony of the Knight Order would still take place later, Leisha, in her role as escort, invites Lux for a walk with the aim of strengthening the bonds between them as teammates. The two arrive at an expensive restaurant and Leisha tries to enter, but Lux realizes that it would be better to avoid high expenses and suggests that they organize their expenses carefully. Leisha searches for her wallet and fails to resolve the issue, so Lux proposes a simple snack at a nearby bakery. Later, Leisha shares difficult memories with Lux and tells him that she was captured 5 years earlier by the former empire and branded with their crest on her abdomen. Leisha's father, who was involved in the coup d'etat, was unable to rescue her and ended up leaving. Leisha says that she sometimes feels unworthy of the role of queen because at that time she wished her father had prioritized her life over the country. As the sole survivor of the Artismide family, Leisha says she has no choice but to take on this responsibility. Alone at night, Lux understands the burden Leisha carries, because he himself does not fit the ideal of a prince either. Lux falls asleep and remembers when Fujiu eliminated many people against his advice, and how Fujiu showed coldness as he attacked without even relying on the horn that summons various abysses. Suddenly, the sound of a bell awakens Lux. Lux runs outside and finds the teacher instructing the cadets about an abyss attack nearby. As a member of the Knight Order, Leisha leaves for the site with some companions while Crucifer instructs Lux to remain at the academy because he has not yet been officially incorporated into the team. Filufi, who is at the academy, informs Lux about the sound of the horn that echoed in the distance. Meanwhile, Leisha reaches the area of the attack and hears the horn whistle, which causes several abyss to emerge from a viscous substance on the ground. A merchant connected to the kingdom of Atismata joins the monsters and reveals himself to be Dritharus, former captain of the guard of the Knightly Order of the Arcadia Empire. Regrith blows the horn and unleashes the horde of abysses against Atismata's containment force. Lux runs back to the academy to deliver a situation report. Upon learning that the team is in grave danger, Lux decides to go out and help. During the battle, Leisha realizes that the number of enemies is too great to contain. While Leisha is busy holding the line, Regrith hits Leisha and knocks her down hard. Then a group of rebels from the old empire arrives on the battlefield and further increases the number of opponents. Piloting Wyvern, Lux reaches the front lines and finds Regrith tearing Leisha's armor and exposing the crest on her abdomen.
Regrith claims that he was the one who marked that crest on her. Lisha refuses to be wounded again and throws her sword, which lightly cuts Regrith's face. Overcome with rage, Regrith tries to finish Lisha off, but Lux intervenes and pushes him away. The wyvern is damaged in the process, so Lux draws his black sword. To everyone's surprise, Lux summons Bahamut, the black drag ride from the attack 5 years ago. Watching from afar, Crucifer realizes that Lux is the black hero she has been searching for. With Bahamut, Lux quickly and accurately eliminates the enemy forces. Regrith, realizing that Lux is the former Prince of Arcadia, demands to know why Lux would betray his own empire. Lux ignores the question, neutralizes Regrith's drag ride, and wins the fight. The next day, the Academy organizes a celebration for Lux's achievements. Many students show admiration and curiosity, although a group led by Sonya remains cautious because of Lux's connections to the previous regime. To make the occasion more dynamic, the principal proposes a competition in which the female students would try to take a special request form from Lux that is in his possession. As a reward, Lux would be under the orders of whoever managed to obtain the form for a week. With 1 hour to hide and avoid the candidates, Lux runs outside and tries to escape from those who want to symbolically capture him. With the intention of protecting him, Luxa takes Lux to her warehouse. When Lux is distracted, Luxa wraps him in the drag ride and tries to force him to hand over the form. As Lux is cornered, Luxa tries to convince him to give in. Lux agrees to do her some favors if she lets him go. As soon as he's free, Lux takes the first chance he gets and runs away. Later, Lux hides near a bush, but realizes that Philippi has followed him after being lured by candy offered by Lisha. Before Philippi grabs the form that falls to the ground, Lux quickly retrieves it and runs again. With 10 minutes left in the competition, Lux hides in the Academy locker room and takes a deep breath as he thinks about his next move. Events favor Lux once again when a group of students head to the locker room to change clothes. Crucifer, standing in front of the shelves, picks up a book and notices Lux hiding nearby. He observes his surroundings to figure out the best way to escape. Crucifer decides to dismiss the other students so they don't see Lux. When the place is empty, Crucifer orders Lux to come out. Lux understands that the competition time is over and hands her the form, but he realizes too late that Crucifer acted in advance and calculated the situation accurately. Crucifer made the clock appear to be a few minutes ahead of the actual time and therefore asked to take the form while leading Lux to believe that the deadline had passed. Lux is devastated by the defeat, and Crucifer, almost in a whisper, mentions that she will use the special request to get him to accept the role of her fake boyfriend. Later, Principal Hiri summons Eren and Lux. The principal shows them the whistle horn that was recovered from Hagrid in the previous fight, and raises the possibility that the object came from the depths of the ruins. The principal informs them that she will send the Night Order to investigate whether the whistle functions as a key to access sealed areas. After the meeting, Eren, who is suspicious of Crucifer, wishes Lux luck in this temporary arrangement. This is because Crucifer is a transfer student from the theocratic country of Ymir and may be hiding something important. The next day, Lux meets with Crucifer. Crucifer confirms that she is a transfer student and the daughter of a count from Ymir. Crucifer explains that the Enfolk family sent her to Adismata with the mission of evaluating high-ranking suitors for the political benefit of the country. Crucifer adds that in a few days a butler from the family will come to check on the progress of this search. Crucifer states that she does not wish to marry now because she needs to fulfill a personal goal first. For this reason, she wants Lux to play the role of her boyfriend for a while to delay any hasty announcements. Crucifer makes it clear that she would reveal the recent confusion involving the locker room if Lux refuses the arrangement. Nearby, Lixia observes the scene, and is bothered to see Lux linked to Crucifer in this way. In the evening, Crucifer helps Lux with his studies when Lixia enters the room, accompanied by Philippi and Tilfar. Lixia tries to provoke jealousy by saying that she has already held hands with Lux, because Lixia understands the gestures naively and imagines that the relationship is progressing quickly. Lux ends the conversation to rest because he has a cover commitment with Crucifer the next day. The next day, Crucifer takes Lux to a clothing store. Philippi and Lixia decide to follow the two without being noticed. Crucifer orders custom-made clothes for Lux, who thanks her for her care and acknowledges her effort. Then Crucifer decides to take Lux out for a meal. On the way, two men try to intimidate the couple to force them to obey. Lux distracts the opponents in front, while Crucifer activates the sword-shaped device and summons the divine drag ride Fafnir. Crucifer protects Lux from the approaching shots and uses the Wise Blute technique, which allows her to anticipate enemy movements. With this prediction, Crucifer accurately neutralizes the attacker's machines. Lixia and Philippi arrive to help and are surprised to see the situation. One of the enemies tries to escape, but Alter Eze, Crucifer's butler, intercepts the retreat. With the situation under control, the group heads to a nearby restaurant. Crucifer introduces Lux to Alter Eze, who is skeptical of Crucifer's choice.
At that moment, Lord Balter Ize arrives at the table to meet Crucifer, because Alter Ize had already scheduled a meeting of suitors for the following day. Crucifer makes it clear that he has no interest in this arrangement and informs him that he is dating Lux as part of the agreement. Balter Ize, who is connected to families close to the former Arcadia Empire, emphasizes the difference in social status by comparing his own condition to that of Lux, who is a deposed prince. Balter Ize proposes a drag ride duel and promises to withdraw if he loses. Balter Ize declares that if he wins, Crucifer must agree to marry him. Crucifer decides that the duel will take place in pairs and decides to team up with Lux, while Alter Ize will be Balter Eid's partner. With the duel scheduled for 3 days later, Balter Eid leaves confidently. The following night, Balter Eid meets with Hayes, an agent linked to Arcadia who has the Apito horn. Balter Eid believes that the Apito is the key to the ruins, but Hayes corrects his assessment and states that the real key is Crucifer. Balter Eid decides that he needs to marry Crucifer to reach the ruins and begins to take the steps that, in his vision, would lead him to become the next ruler of the kingdom of Atismata. The next day at the Night Academy, Crucifer thanks Lux for his flawless performance as her boyfriend the day before. Lisha overhears the conversation and is relieved to understand that the relationship is just a facade, because Lisha believes she still has a chance to get closer to Lux. Excited, Lisha even suggests adding an accessory to Lux's wyvern for the duel against Balter Eid, because Lisha wants to contribute technically. As Lux is sleepy, he looks for a place to rest, but finds Tilfar on the way. Tilfar leads him to a room prepared for a surprise where Lisha and Philoof are dressed as attendants and have organized a big snack for Lux, with the intention of cheering him up and supporting him before the challenges. Meanwhile, a conference is held at Atismata Castle. The queen meets with the 4 great nobles to discuss an urgent matter. Each ruin is home to a unique and powerful creature called Ragnarok. One of these entities, named Poseidon, shows signs of returning from a fossilized state, which requires immediate action. The nobles decide to prepare before the awakening and coordinate measures to prevent a crisis. Org Crucifer, one of the 4 great nobles, tasks his son Baltzerid with investigating the ruins in order to find weapons capable of facing Poseidon. At the Night Academy, Riri gathers the cadets to announce the research expedition she had previously planned, with the intention of reaching the depths of the ruins using the horn whistle as a possible key. Riri entrusts Lux with the whistle. Lux notices Crucifer's presence at the meeting and talks to her afterwards. Crucifer informs him that she will participate in the mission even as a transfer student, because she sees this expedition as a concrete chance to fulfill her own goal, which Lux is still unaware of. Later, Lux goes to the bath to relax before the expedition. Another misunderstanding occurs when Lux notices Philufi's presence there. Lux immediately turns away to avoid embarrassment and tries to walk away. At that moment, Lux notices that an old scar on Philufi's back seems to have disappeared. In the past, Philufi had suffered this injury. However, Philufi does not remember anything about it, while Lux claims to remember it clearly. The confusion leaves Lux stunned, and he decides to leave to regain his composure. The next day, the cadets gather while the teacher explains the objectives of the trip to the ruins. Cruz, Phalia, and Lux are surprised to see that Baltzerid will participate in the investigation as a special guest. Phalia shows her displeasure at Baltzerid's arrival, and Baltzerid declares that he will act to protect the team and will not interfere in other decisions. Then, everyone heads to the ruins with their drag raids as the mission moves toward a decisive point. As the group approaches the ruins, they encounter an abyss called Diablo. The monster advances on Noct, but Lux protects his companion. Baltzerid fires at the creature, which retreats as the other cadets also open fire. Crucifer, with the support of the divine drag raid Fafnir, activates the Weissblut skill and precisely freezes the abyss's hand. Then Baltzerid, using his own divine drag raid, attacks Diablo again. Displaying considerable strength, Baltzerid provokes Lux by proposing an abyss elimination contest with the condition that the duel scheduled for the next day will be cancelled if Lux defeats more enemies than him. Crucifer tries to restrain him with Weissblut, but cannot accurately predict the creature's movements. Diablo launches a burst of fire at Crucifer, and Lux saves her in time. Baltzerid materializes a large axe and throws it at Diablo, hitting the enemy in the chest. Baltzerid taunts Lux because he clearly feels superior in combat and believes he will easily win the contest. Crucifer begins to lose confidence because Weissblut, for unknown reasons, does not respond as she expected. Suddenly, Lux orders everyone to take cover because the Abosa begins a detonation process. The cadets raise barriers, and Lux notices that Crucifer's Fafnir loses stability. At the same time, the ruin glows and opens. In a split-second decision, Lux envelops Crucifer with Wyvern and protects her just as the shockwave hits them, dragging them both into the structure. With the shock, Lux has a glimpse of a memory in which he remembers Foji going to check on his condition after Lux used a new impactful technique piloting Foji's Bahamut. When he regains consciousness, Lux realizes he is in an unknown location. Crucifer states that they were both swept away by the ruin and therefore need to proceed with caution. The two head toward the altar in the center because Crucifer believes that the others would tend to converge on that point. On the way, fatigue from the previous battle takes its toll and Crucifer has difficulty walking. Lux suggests a break, but Crucifer reminds her that she has a goal and few opportunities to achieve it. Given this, Lux supports her and takes on part of the burden of the march. While supporting her, Lux asks why Crucifer is looking for the black hero who is actually Lux himself. Crucifer explains that regardless of the pilot, a drag ride has a limit to its continuous operation. But the black hero seems to escape this rule, and so she believes there is a link between the nature of that fighter and her own condition, which leads her to want to find him. At that moment, Crucifer still does not associate Lux with the identity of the black hero. Upon reaching the altar, Crucifer concludes that they have arrived first, because the place is empty. Lux tries to use the horn whistle he received to unlock access to the interior, but realizes that the altar reacts to Crucifer's presence without the need for the artifact. Faced with the mechanism's reaction, Crucifer decides to reveal the secret she has kept from everyone until then. When the passage opens upon recognizing the key, Crucifer confesses that she does not originally belong to the Enfolk family, nor is she even a native of the human world. Crucifer claims to be the last survivor of the ruins, and therefore the living key to that place. With the corridor cleared, the walls begin to collapse, and Lux leads Crucifer to the newly exposed opening. As they enter, debris falls and blocks the entrance, trapping the two inside the path that leads from the altar. Further on, Crucifer walks ahead and tells Lux that she was found as a child inside a capsule similar to the one they have just identified. Crucifer recounts that she was adopted by the Enfolke family, but that her status as a survivor of the ruins always created distance, even within her own home. In search of affection from her siblings, Crucifer devoted herself vigorously to becoming a drag ride knight. However, her proximity to the legacy of the ruins kept her at a distance. With no memories of the past, Crucifer made investigating that place her life's goal, hoping to find possible fellow countrymen. The lack of clues leaves her discouraged, and makes her feel that her efforts are fruitless. Lux calms her down, takes Crucifer's hands gently, and tells her that she is important and has value in her own right regardless of her origins. Intrigued by the kindness Lux shows despite his history with the former empire, Crucifer asks why Lux acts with such consideration even though he is the deposed prince of Arcadia. In response, Lux recalls the period when he and his mother were expelled from court by his father's decision, motivated by his grandfather's criticism of imperial policies. Lux recalls that after the expulsion neither the people nor the nobility offered help, and that his mother ended up dying in front of him. Lux admits that he harbored resentment, but says that in his most difficult moment, Philippi helped him and guided him to transform his anger into empathy. Touched by Lux's story and the way he redirected his suffering, Crucifer asks if Lux would support her if he became prince of a new kingdom. But her question is interrupted when Luxia appears piloting a drag ride equipped with a drill, demonstrating some practical use for the accessory. A blushing Luxia makes it clear that she does not want to see Lux and Crucifer get too close. Lux does not understand the insinuations and the situation loses focus. The next day, Lux meets with Eri, who scolds him for his recklessness. Eri gives Lux herbal tea and recommends rest, because the duel with Baltsarid is approaching. When the time for the confrontation arrives, Lux remains asleep, and it is revealed that the tea was tampered with. Crucifer didn't want Lux to get involved again because of her, so she used the special form she had obtained earlier and convinced Eri to give it to her, determined to take on the fight alone. At the agreed location, Baltsarid asks about Lux, and Crucifer ends the conversation by demanding that the duel begin without him. To make the confrontation supposedly balanced, Baltsarid orders Alter Izia, his own butler, to step aside and then uses a power over Alter Izia that causes him to collapse. Without further delay, Baltsarid and Crucifer engage in a fierce duel with successive blade clashes. In a moment of closeness, Baltsarid provokes contact and immediately activates his ability again. From that point on, Baltsarid proves to be much stronger, dodging Crucifer's blows even when she resorts to predicting his movements. With the advantage, Baltsarid forcefully knocks Crucifer down and forces him to abandon Fafnir. Facing his opponent in defense, Baltsarid declares that he sees Crucifer only as a key to the ruins. But he is interrupted when Lux appears piloting the Black Hero's drag ride and reveals his identity to Crucifer. To protect her ally, Lux goes on the attack, and after a single clash of blades, identifies the true ability of Baltzarid's Divine Drag Ride, which is to absorb the powers of other Divine Drag Rides. Baltzarid actually uses Crucifer's prediction, which he had copied earlier. Baltzarid then uses Crucifer as bait and fires at her. Lux descends to protect her and creates an opportunity for Baltzarid to also try to absorb the power of the Black Hero. With his new advantage, Baltzarid begins to dictate the pace and pushes Lux onto the defensive. As she must block attacks that reflect her own strength, Lux becomes exhausted. Crucifer, seeing Lux's effort to protect her, is moved to tears. The gesture restores Lux's determination. Lux decides to end the fight, and gathering his remaining strength, executes an exceptionally powerful blow that decisively knocks Baltzarid down. The next day, Lux meets Altares and Crucifer at a cafe while Lisha watches from a distance out of jealousy and concern. Since Lux defeated Crucifer's suitor, Altares announces him as her new fiancé. What surprises Lux? Lux tries to clear up the misunderstanding, but Altares leaves them alone. Crucifer asks for calm, praises the courage Lux has shown and decides to reward his attitude with a kiss, which confirms the closeness between the two. Lisha, unable to cope with the scene, interrupts the moment and shows discomfort with the possibility of a more serious commitment. A few days later, news circulates in the academy about a hooded person causing incidents. At the same time, the return of Celestia Halgris, recognized as the strongest knight in the institution, is announced. As Celestia is known for avoiding contact with men, Lux is given the reconnaissance mission wearing a female uniform so as not to attract attention. In disguise, Lux walks through the academy without being identified, because his appearance and voice naturally support the disguise. After patrolling for a while, Lux decides to rest on a bench, but hears a low voice coming from a bush. As he approaches, Lux sees a blonde girl talking to a cat. At that moment, a suspicious man approaches from behind and tries to attack him. Lux's scream alerts the blonde girl, who steps in front of him to protect him and causes the attacker to retreat. Faced with the possibility of reinforcements, the man throws a smoke bomb to escape and, before disappearing, throws a dagger at the girl. Lux places himself between the weapon and the young woman, suffers a minor injury, and prevents the blade from hitting her. Later, to treat the cut, the girl takes Lux to the infirmary and asks him to loosen his shirt so she can carefully apply a bandage. Fearing that his disguise would be discovered, Lux decides that the bandage should be applied with his back to the girl, and allows her to loosen his shirt just enough to put on the bandage. After treating the wound, Lux prepares to leave, but the blonde asks his name, and as he was posing as a Luna, he gives the name Luno. The young woman then introduces herself as Celestia Halgris, known as the strongest knight, and expresses her desire to meet Luno again on other occasions. The next day, Crucifer and Lisha approach Lux at the same time because they both want his attention, and Lux tries to calm the commotion that the dispute causes around them. That night, elsewhere, Hayes enters the cell of Baltzarid, who had survived the confrontation with Lux and remained imprisoned. Baltzarid believes he will be rescued, but Hayes reveals hostile intentions and turns him into an abyss as punishment for his defeat by Lux Arcadia. In the cell next door, Regrid watches the transformation in fear. Back at the academy, Lux prepares to meet Celestia without disguise. Porente Ufar knocks on the door and informs him that Celestia is meeting with the principal. The two proceed to the office, where Celestia, who does not recognize Luno and Lux, advocates for his expulsion. Lisha opposes Celestia's position and maintains that Lux should remain. When Lux arrives, Celestia thanks him for his help in her absence, but insists that it is past time for him to leave because the enrollment of a boy in a girls' academy violates a rule. Lux asks for a chance to help fight Ragnarok and Poseidon, but Celestia considers his participation unnecessary. Noticing the impasse, Principal Riri suggests a duel whose winner would decide the outcome, and Celestia and Lux agree to fight after the training session on King Island. Later, Sonia goes to Celestia's room and asks what will be done about Lux. Celestia reassures Sonia and says she intends to keep Lux away from school because she thinks it would be best for him. When everyone arrives at King Island, training begins immediately, with Celestia in charge of instruction and conducting the activities with great rigor. After the exercises, Lux looks for Xeris because he intends to use the Luno disguise he brought with him. Before he can change, Xeris intercepts him and tells him that Celestia has called him. In the room, Lux finds Celestia waiting for a massage to relieve muscle tension. Lux stands beside her and performs the procedure. When finished, Celestia asks for the lighting to be adjusted so she can get dressed, which causes Lux to panic and quickly put on the female uniform, resuming Luno's identity. Realizing that Luno had been with her the whole time, Celestia is pleased and makes a date to meet in the park the next day.
Upon leaving, Lux runs into Sonia, who is surprised by Luno's presence and reaches for her weapon, but Crucifer appears nearby, offers a plausible explanation and diffuses the tension. Later, back in the dormitory, Philofi shows up in the middle of the night in her pajamas and Lux explains that she is in the wrong room and that the women's quarters are in another section. Philofi says she will not allow Celestia to expel Lux and reinforces that she will continue to stand by him, which comforts Lux because of their long-standing partnership. The next day, Lux returns to his Luno disguise and meets Celestia, who takes him to a swimwear store. Afraid of jeopardizing his disguise, Lux leaves in a hurry. Celestia concludes that she acted without consideration. To reassure her, Lux points out that Celestia serves as a role model for younger students and encourages her to maintain her leadership stance. Celestia calms down, hugs Luno and follows him to a nearby park, where the two share a pleasant snack. During the conversation, Celestia comments on the main misconception that people have about her, because many believe that she rejects men, which is not true. Lux realizes that he also misinterpreted Celestia's behavior and revises his own impression. The next day, the Atismata Castle patrol learns that the fossilized Poseidon has awakened and has already escaped to deep waters. Unaware of this escape, the knights continue their activities in the vicinity of King Island. Celestia and Sonia put on appropriate swimwear and prepare for training. While getting ready, Celestia explains to Sonia that the real reason for trying to expel Lux is her own difficulty in dealing with the opposite sex. It is not aversion, she adds, but rather that she cannot allow herself to become romantically involved because she carries the responsibility of being the eldest daughter of the Halgris house, one of the 4 great noble families. On the beach, Lux observes her classmates in swimsuits and encounters Luxia, who expresses concern about the visible coat of arms. Lux attempts to calm her, but Luxia misinterprets the approach. Celestia and Sonia join the cadets and immediately question Director Riri because they realize that the training is not progressing. Riri notes that Celestia herself is not wearing specific training attire. Celestia remembers that Luno had suggested a certain outfit and starts looking for Luno on the beach, but Riri informs them that she doesn't know anyone by that name. Realizing that his disguise is in danger of being exposed, Lux is taken by Uncle Farnox and Charis into the woods, where his colleagues insist that he continue to act as Luno. Lux refuses the demand and runs away, bumping into Celestia, who is irritated by the confusion. Celestia and Sonia return to camp upset because they were unable to make progress in their group training. As Celestia walks away, Lux recalls the previous day's conversation when, still as Luno, he saw Celestia express her desire to apologize to Lux for having been trained by Wade Robelt, Lux's grandfather, whose death she believes she is to blame for. Celestia wants to protect Lux from any plot that would bind him to similar situations, and therefore intends to keep him away from complications. Lux, however, feels that he must remain at the academy and decides to devote himself fully to the duel. Outside the camp, the hooded individual meets with Reese to finalize the plan for the next day. When the time for combat arrives, Lux and Celestia head to the duel arena. Celestia appears with the divine drag ride Lindworm, and Lux chooses Wyvern. Aerie comments to Nocte that Lux is trying to keep Bahamut a secret from the Night Order, which is still unaware of this detail. At the same time, in the dense forest, the hooded man is intercepted by Tilfar and Charais, who identify the spy as an agent of the Republic of King Burgle and find letters addressed to that country with confidential information about the academy. They conclude that the previous incidents were a ploy to confuse Lux and recognize Sonia behind the disguise. Sonia firmly abandons her cloak and declares her intention to eliminate everyone on the island to strike the kingdom of Atismata. Sonia summons the drag ride and upon hearing the sound of a whistle, demonstrates an unusual increase in power, something Tilfar and Charais had never witnessed before. Nearby, Reese blows the horn whistle and further amplifies Sonia's abilities. Then Ragnarok Poseidon emerges from the ground and interrupts the duel between Lux and Celestia. As the cadets rush to safety, Aerie realizes that Filuf is missing. In the forest, Filuf begins to feel weak for an unknown reason, but Principal Hiriui, who is Filuf's older sister, arrives in time to protect her. Back at the beach, Celestia, against Lux's suggestion, activates the Divine Drag Ride's Divine Gate ability and teleports close to Poseidon. Celestia lands an initial blow, but finds Sonia and Reese at the scene. As Reese wears a cloak, Lux mistakes her for Fuguai for a moment. Reese blows the horn whistle and provokes Poseidon's reaction, while Sonia tries to hit Celestia and is stopped by Lux's wyvern. Sonia retreats, Poseidon spreads a black smoke screen, and visibility disappears. Hidden in the smoke, Celestia admits to Lux that she feels responsible for his grandfather's death and shows deep regret. In the past, Celestia learned of corruption within the former Arcadia Empire and told Wade Hobelt, Lux's grandfather. Wade denounced the system, was executed for it, and as a result, Lux and his mother were banished.
Celestia carries the guilt of not keeping quiet about the information she heard and believes that this triggered tragedies in Lux's life, in addition to considering that she dragged him back into the fight against Poseidon. Lux comforts her and makes it clear that he does not hate her. Lux then leaves Ivor, draws the black sword-shaped device, and Celestia realizes that it is the same equipment associated with Luno. Lux reveals that he was disguised as Luno and states that he will accept any punishment later. In the immediate present, Lux decides to use Bahamut to end the fight. Lux quickly cuts off all of Poseidon's tentacles and defeats Ragnarok despite the threat. Upon being defeated, Poseidon releases a crystal that Sania immediately collects. Sania lifts Raze and remains suspended nearby. When Raze removes the cloak, Lux realizes the deception and understands that it was not Fuju. Raze declares that he intends to resurrect the nightmare from 5 years ago, but Lux does not understand the reference. Raze leaves with Sania, and the field falls silent. When the situation stabilizes, Lux tends to Celestia's injuries at the camp. With trust restored, Celestia authorizes Lux's entry into the Night Order and agrees to let him remain at the academy. That night, Lux reflects on Raze's words about what happened on the island 5 years earlier. Lux tries to search his memories but finds only fragmented images of injured people. Suddenly, the ground shakes violently. Everyone leaves their tents and watches something colossal rise from the sea. Director Hiri informs them that one of the ruins is emerging before them and announces the plan to explore the interior the day after tomorrow. The next day, while the team prepares for the expedition, Lux goes to see how Felufi is doing because she felt weak the day before. Lux recalls an old episode in which Rhaegrid and his half-brother Fugui damaged a statue and blamed Felufi. Lux knew Felufi was innocent and took responsibility to protect her, which strengthened their friendship. In the present, Felufi wants to participate in the raid on the ruins with the cadets. Lux is concerned about her health, but Felufi insists on accompanying the group. Lisha calls Lux to her workplace and teaches him the Bahamut overlimit technique. Lisha explains that the technique removes the drag ride's limiter and increases its power, but it involves risk because the release sequence can endanger the pilot's life. Since Ragnarok and Poseidon have been defeated, Riri believes it is possible that the passage to the deepest layer has opened. Riri explains that the ancient writing in the center of the ruins will pull everyone present inside after a certain interval. Following Riri's instructions, the group crosses the entrance when the mechanism is activated. Inside, the scene is desolate. Noktvar is the area in search of Abyss and confirms that they are on the first underground level. Riri informs them that the ruins extend over 11 underground levels. The team begins their reconnaissance and soon reaches an area with plants, but the environment shows signs of imbalance. Crucifer observes the marks on the ground and surmises that a serious event has affected the ecosystem of the place. Given the area to be covered, Riri proposes dividing into teams. Crucifer, Lisha, and Shares take the 4th basement level. Tilfar, Riri, and Philuf take the 5th. Lux, Eri, and Noct descend to the 6th. Eri entrusts the 3rd basement to Celestia, judging that she has enough strength to operate alone. Celestia shows discouragement at being isolated, and Lux suggests an intermediate meeting with his team which cheers Celestia up and makes her accept the arrangement. While Lux's team searches the 6th basement, Noct detects a signal on the display and rules out the presence of Abyss. The group proceeds to the source of the alert. Lux removes the debris and finds a girl under the rocks. Surprised, they call Crucifer because of her connection to the ruins. Considering the risk of staying with too many people around, Crucifer instructs Noct and Eri to go meet Luxia's group and decides to investigate the girl with only Lux nearby. Crucifer touches the young woman's face, who immediately awakens, recognizes Crucifer as the administrator of the ruin, and says she has lost part of her memories, asking for programming repair. Crucifer does not remember performing this function, so the young woman introduces herself as Lakrash, supervisor of the ruins. Lakrash explains that she is an automaton from an ancient era. Crucifer asks about records of the past, but Lakrash states that the data is temporarily unavailable due to the prolonged period of hibernation, and adds that the functions of the ruins have been suspended. To reactivate the systems and recover memories, Lakrash informs Crucifer that she must identify herself as the administrator in the control room and issue the restoration command. To share their findings, Lux and Crucifer reunite with the other teams. Lux notices that Philuf is showing signs of weakness again. Crucifer comments on her concern about Lakrash's words, which mentioned a creator above the administrator level. According to Lakrash, the administrator is Crucifer herself, which suggests the existence of an owner with authority superior to hers. With more sectors, Vistoriara is informed that the so-called production area is on the 7th level and proposes to concentrate the search from there. Meanwhile, at Atismata Castle, news arrives that Hagrid has escaped from prison and is preparing a rebel army. One of the nobles suggests requesting Lux's support, given his skill level as a drag ride knight.
At the ruins, Lux decides to accompany Filuf's team because of her health condition. The group arrives at the production area and finds numerous capsules containing Abyss. Filuf is alarmed because she senses the approach of enemies. Nearby, Rice uses the horn whistle to provoke the creatures to appear. A Diablo attacks Lux, who manages to defend himself after a brief struggle. Luckrash explains that when the ruins go on alert, they release 3 Abyss, 2 outside and 1 inside. To protect the people on the island, Filuf and Lux rush out of the ruins and leave Hiri in Tilfar's care inside the complex. Noticing that Filuf seems to know where the Abyss are, Lux asks if she has been to that ruin before, but receives no answer. Outside, Lux begins to recover memories of the nightmare from 5 years ago. Suddenly, a Diablo throws Filuf against a wall. Lux quickly eliminates the 2 Diablos and goes to her aid. Lux then notices that an underground area has opened up beneath the building where Filuf was hit, descends through the cracks, and as he advances he sees flashes from the past that come back to mind with renewed force. Lux remembers that the underground space served as an area for experiments on humans during the Old Empire period. Lux recalls that he was there 5 years earlier and begins to see flashes that suggest Filuf was also taken to that place. However, Lux believes he only recently reunited with Filuf, 7 years after their first encounter, and this discrepancy confuses him when his memories point to her having been there with him in that past. While trying to organize his memories, Lux finds Filuf nearby and runs towards her, but realizes that she has a fever. Filuf warns him that there is an abyss in the same room and suddenly grabs Lux's neck with a look that reveals the presence of the abyss within her. On the verge of fainting, Lux relives the moment of his first kiss with Filuf, calls her name, and her reaction causes Filuf to resist the abyss's control. When she lets go of him, Ray appears on the scene. Inside the ruins, the cadets manage to defeat the creatures. Crucifer and Lisha team up and neutralize one of the Diablos, while the others continue their investigation. The group locates the door that leads to the deepest part of the complex, but they don't have the key to open it. Unaware that Crucifer is the living key, Arya and the cadets seek alternatives to access the interior. In the experimentation chambers, Lux raises his sword against Raisk and warns him that Filuf's life is at risk if he acts without caution. Raisk, who had already declared his intention to bring the nightmare back to the island, reveals that he has implanted the seed of Ragnarok itself inside Filuf as part of the plan. Worms begin to act internally and transform Filuf into a hybrid form, causing her to obey Ragnarok. Filuf weakens precisely because she resists the command and tries to maintain her own consciousness. Raisk explains the command given to Ragnarok, which is to eliminate Lux, as this order would push Filuf into suffering and death, and Raisk proposes a deal. In exchange for ordering Ragnarok to save Filuf, Raisk demands that Lux use Crucifer to open the door to the last level. Upon leaving, Raisk reveals who he is, suggesting a kinship and pointing out the similarity in hair color. As soon as Raisk leaves, Lux takes Filuf back to camp. Filuf cannot remember what happened shortly before arriving. Lux helps Filuf eat because her weakness prevents her from doing so alone. While caring for her, one of Filuf's eyes takes on the appearance of the abyss, and Lux decides to leave the room. In the hallway, Riri, Filuf's older sister, appears worried. Lux informs Riri that Filuf was the subject of human experiments on that island 5 years earlier. Riri says she knows Lux tried to help at the time, but that Filuf died during that period and that the person before them now is a reanimated hybrid version partially connected to the abyss. Riri explains that she brought everyone to the island to search the deepest layers of the ruins for a solution that could save Filuf. Lux remembers how Filuf supported him in his grief over his mother's death and decides to help Riri reach the deepest level. Lux then finds Lisha, who has already completed repairs on the Bahamut. While Lisha searches for Principal Riri to request authorization to use overload mode, Lux receives a call from Fuju. Fuju is bothered by Reese's use of the horn whistle, and knowing that Lux wants to save Filuf, he suggests that Lux destroy her horn and defeat the Ragnarok that commands the seed inside Filuf. After the call, Lux goes to see Filuf before leaving for the ruins. Filuf claims to know about the abyss that invades her. Lux hugs her tightly and expresses gratitude for their friendship, renewing his promise to free her from control. At the entrance to the ruins, Crucifer, aware of the situation, agrees to open the door to the deepest level. As they pass through, the cadets are surprised by the emptiness of the place. Lucrush suddenly regains his memory, declares the cadets enemies, and sides with Reese. On the last level, Reese reveals that he tricked the group into opening the door and brought Filuf in abyssal form, breaking the agreement made with Lux. Reese uses the horn whistle and orders Filuf in armor to attack the cadets. Faced with the threat, everyone equips their drag rides. Lucrush, who has spare units, launches armor in automatic mode against Lux. In combat, Lux realizes that the autonomous armor moves at abnormal speeds, a sign that they can use over limit.
The cadets have difficulty containing Fuluf in Abyss mode because her divine drag ride ability, Missing Fate, nullifies the capabilities of other divine drag rides. Seeing her companions in danger, Eri acts quickly, using the whistle horn that Hiri had previously given to Lux. Meanwhile, Reese tries to place the Poseidon crystal on the deep-level altar, but is interrupted by Fuju. Reese hears the sound of a whistle without having touched the horn herself, and runs back to the battlefield. Eri is the one blowing the horn whistle. Reese tries to respond with hers, but Fuluf stops her because Reese's command power has weakened to the point that Fuluf has returned to her normal form. With their momentary advantage, the cadets demand Reese's surrender. Reese refuses and summons another Ragnarok with the power of the horn. The cadets open fire, but Ragnarok uses branches to immobilize them and regenerates with each attack it receives. Faced with this disadvantage, Lux asks Lux for permission to activate Bahamut's overdrive.
Lux hesitates because of the risk, but authorizes it due to the danger Ragnarok poses. Lux goes into combat, cuts the enemy, but is captured by the controlled branches. Lux transmits the release code from Tiamat, and Lux manages to enter overdrive. With his power increased, Lux eliminates Ragnarok at high speed, surprising Reese. The ruins begin to collapse into the sea, and everyone evacuates. After the confrontation, Lux and the cadets return to camp. To repay the favor, Filufi takes care of Lux, who used Overlimit in battle. During their conversation, Filufi says that she gained resistance to the horn whistle due to the shock inside the ruins. Lux is relieved because this reduces the immediate risk to her life. Filufi thanks Lux for keeping his promise to protect her despite the difficulties. The next day, Lux returns to the academy and is surprised by a celebration of his recent achievements. After her long stay on the island, Riri wants to mark the group's return, even though she has been warned by her superiors for leading the expedition without authorization. Riri believes the reprimand was lenient because the leader's attention is focused on the big event in the royal capital of Atismata, the National Foundation Festival celebrating 5 years since the kingdom's formation. When Luxia tries to approach Lux, Crucifer invites him on a date. Luxia is surprised by Crucifer's confidence and realizes that the competition will become even more intense because Celestia and Filufi also want time with him. Before the situation gets out of hand, Riri suggests that Lux make a choice. Unable to decide immediately, Lux chooses to meet with his friends at separate times the next day. On the morning of the meeting, Ariria accompanies Lux to his meeting with Celestia. On the way, Ariri explains that there will be a drag ride battle segment during the Foundation Festival, a tournament in which representatives from various countries compete for the right to research the ruins. Ariri informs him that this time, Lux and the members of the Night Order will represent the country, but makes it clear that she is against his participation because Lux has just recovered from the battle on King Island. Before saying goodbye, Ariria warns that a powerful knight, known as the Dagger of the Empire, has escaped from prison in the capital, and suspects that the fugitive may be targeting Lux, since he defeated the Empire of Arcadia. Soon after, Ariri introduces Celestia, who is ready for the meeting. Charis, Noct, and Tilfar, who are responsible for coordinating Lux's outings, give him a more formal outfit. Lux and Celestia begin their visit to the festival stands, and after a while rest near a fountain. Lux casually comments on the episode in which Celestia drank something alcoholic without realizing it and became dizzy. Grateful for the company, Celestia tries to shake Lux's hand, loses her balance, and pulls him down with her. The situation causes slight embarrassment, and Tilfar turns the incident into a joke to ease the tension. With the event over, the coordinators announce the next engagement with Crucifer. Crucifer invites Lux to a hall where nobles and knights gather on the eve of the All-Dragon tournament, and asks Lux to accompany her in a dance. Lux admits to having little experience, and Crucifer offers to lead him as the music begins. At sunset, Crucifer goes to the balcony and laughs as she recalls Lux's clumsy steps during the dance. Crucifer explains to Lux that she arranged that meeting because Alter Easy wanted to check on her situation, and to maintain the appearance of an engagement, asks Lux to cooperate with a staged gesture of affection. Lux agrees, and Tilfar observes how naturally Crucifer conducts everything. Next, the organizers of the meetings accompany Lux to his appointment with Filufi. As usual, Filufi wears simple, comfortable clothes. Upon arriving at the chosen location, Filufi reveals that she preferred a church because she wanted a calm environment. Filufi takes Lux inside, asks him to rest peacefully, and offers him a lap to relieve his accumulated fatigue. Due to minor unforeseen circumstances, Lux avoids any embarrassment and decides to take a nap. After an hour of restful sleep, Lux leaves and meets Lisha, who shows some frustration at not having been chosen for the meeting. Lisha, however, recognizes that the choice was difficult and does not insist on the matter. Lisha explains that she wanted to talk to Lux to ask for a favor and requests that he become her knight. because after graduation she will need a trusted assistant to share responsibilities. Lux considers that his past connection to the old empire could complicate her life, but Lisha says that even with possible difficulties, she is considering introducing him to the country alongside her on the last day of the Foundation Festival. Lisha asks Lux to give her an answer by that date and walks away, embarrassed. The next day, Lux informs Aerith of his decision to participate in the All-Dragon tournament. Aerith calls the decision rash, and states that Lux will only be able to use his main weapon for 12 minutes in the tournament because there are still active threats. While listing dangers such as Hayes and Regrid, Aerith recalls that the assassin known as the Dagger of the Empire has escaped. During the conversation, Iruka suddenly appears and claims to have been a knight of the old empire, declaring that she would now follow Lux's orders because she sees him as her master. The situation arises too quickly, and Lux asks her to wait for instructions in front of Aerith. Later, with Lisha rehearsing her speech for the festival, Lux enters the room, discusses the previous day's request, and evaluates possibilities. Meanwhile, Hayes, Sonya, and Iruka activate another ruin in a different location. Soon after, the nobles summon Lux and Aerith to discuss a plan by Regrid to overthrow the new kingdom after the Drag Raids tournament. Lux is ordered to act as bait to lure more than 100 abysses hidden in uninhabited villages near the kingdom, with the promise of reducing the consequences of the King Island incident. The nobles also demand that Lux win the tournament, and he accepts both tasks despite Aerith's opposition. Upon returning to the academy, Lux asks for another modification to Lisha's wyvern, but spots Iruka.
They talk about the reasons that lead Iruka to serve Lux even after the end of the empire. Iruka explains that he is fulfilling a promise made to his deceased younger brother, and makes it clear that he intends to destroy the new kingdom and restore the empire to honor that agreement. As Lux refuses the idea of destroying the kingdom, Iruka begins to treat him as an enemy and leaves. During the tournament, Lux wins his fight, but Crucifer notices that he forces a quick victory, unlike his usual style. After the fight, Lux asks Aerith to pass on a message if he does not return for the team stage. Later, Lisha's fight begins, and everything goes well until Iruka manipulates Lisha's armor, forcing an attack on the audience. Lisha is detained and the armor is seized. Meanwhile, Lux finds Sonya releasing the abyss and lures the creatures to the kingdom's soldiers who manage to eliminate them. Fulfilling her promise to Lux, Aerith explains the operation to the girls, who decide to find Iruka and rescue Lisha. When Lux tries to rest, insurgents led by Regrita attack and eliminate the remaining soldiers while the main force retreats. At the academy, the students learn of the insurgents' advance toward the capital. Lux faces Regrita, who reveals that a large stone golem piloted by kings is approaching the capital, forcing Lux to resort to Bahamut, even though he knows he can only use it for 12 minutes. The battle continues, and Regrita manages to tear off one of the supposed Bahamut's arms, only to discover that it was a wyvern in disguise. Lux quickly defeats Regrita and his men and heads for the capital, keeping in contact with Aerith. Meanwhile, Lisha receives a visit from Sonya, who tries to humiliate her and orders a subordinate to expose the Empire's mark, but Lux arrives in time to stop her. Lux encourages Lisha, who feels dejected and guilty, to return to the fight. Rias demands the surrender of the new kingdom, but is attacked and momentarily restrained by Lux, Lisha, Crucifer, and Filufi. Meanwhile, he and Lisha focus on the Colossus. Soon after, Rias returns in her own divine drag ride and launches an attack that cuts through the city, putting the defenders under enormous pressure. Elsewhere, Celestia confronts Sonya, who threatens the nobles. While Lux searches for an entry point into the giant, Lisha faces Rias alone and is at a disadvantage. When Lux finds a passage, he is stopped by Yoruka, who intends to restore the empire under Aerith's leadership, because Lux continues to reject her proposal. Lux questions Yoruka's reasons once again, and she tells him the whole story. Yoruka was a princess, and her twin brother inherited the throne after their father died of illness. In exchange for Yoruka's cooperation with the empire, her brother's life would be spared, but while she was away, nobles from his own kingdom killed him as a peace offering, placing all the blame on him when they surrendered to the empire. Yoruka eliminated the nobles in retaliation and decided to fulfill her contract with the empire, believing that this was her destiny. Lux, however, compares Yoruka's stance to that of Lisha, who tries to do her best even though she holds a position that often weighs heavily on her. The battle continues, and Lux ends up winning by taking advantage of Yoruka's brief distraction when he mentions his brother in his own speech. Lux explains that he wanted to change the country for the better and failed, and that to achieve this he had to destroy the empire first and rebuild it from scratch, making Yoruka understand that everything Lux did was in favor of a future different from the old regime. Celestia defeats Sarnia, but the giant reactivates and prepares to attack the capital. Yoruka, who decides to return to serving Lux, betrays Hayes and destroys the Colossus's controls at the last moment. Overcome with rage, Hayes tries to devastate the capital alone and is finally defeated by Lux. At the end of the festival, Lisha gives a speech and publicly announces Lux as her knight, receiving the approval of the people. During the celebration, Lux spots Fuju holding a sword device that resembles Bahamut's and sees Fuju walk away silently. Lux is then surrounded by his friends, including Yoruka, who starts teasing him openly, and Lisha, who is annoyed and demands that Lux clarify once and for all who he loves. But before he can answer, the season ends. Like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more videos.